very soon it will be normal to have your own AI assistant that you can speak to that not only gives you advice and proactively recommends things, but can go and actually take action with your permission, with the right guardrails, of course. And that action will often be speaking or connecting with a brand or an organization to potentially go and buy something or make a change to a flight. And on the other end of that is sometimes a human, but also more and more so will be an AI agent as well.
Damian, podcasting is my one job. You guys have very realistic conversations on the platform that I can't tell the difference between real humans and those. Should I be looking for a new job? Hello and welcome to In the Blink of AI. I'm Georgie Healy and today we have Damian. He is the GM of ANZ at ElevenLabs and he's currently 3 to 4xing the team growth plan here in Australia and New Zealand. ElevenLabs, you might think of them as voice AI. That's definitely what they're famous for. They have 11 API, 11 creative and 11 agents now. Damian's been having fun with a fridge-mounted family AI assistant in the voice of Michael Caine. I actually use the app to read me back my own Substack in the voice of Laurence Olivier. It made me sound so impressive. And we talked about what AI music we would like to bring back. I will save that for the show. Damian has some really good perspectives with his years in managing and leading teams, and he has a hot take on enterprise AI. If tech leads instead of the business, the guardrails and the ways that you are approaching it are going to fall behind. I will let him explain that in better detail in the show. And we have probably one of my favorite lines of the podcasts I've ever done, which is that tall poppy syndrome here is a scourge on society, to be honest. Frankly, I agree. Let's dive into the show for that and so many more hot takes.
You're listening to a Day1.fm show.
Founders scale faster on Deal. Set up payroll for any country in minutes, hire anyone anywhere, get visas handled fast, and get back to building. Visit deal.com/day1. That's DEEL.com/day1.
Can you please share your AI hack of the week?
AI hack. I'll share something that I built recently with ElevenLabs, of course. And N8N. And
yep.
It's close to where I wanted to get to, but I think there's still a lot more to go. I've actually built a family AI assistant that sits on the fridge on an iPad using ElevenLabs, which is essentially taking all the life admin, but not just reactively, proactively as well. So, and we call him the Butler. The Butler proactively talks to me in the morning as I'm making the morning coffee to talk about anything from, hey, you've got this event coming up. It accesses the school calendars for all of the kids. It knows when important dates are coming up. Have we bought a present? Would you like some recommendations? To, hey, would you like, maybe you're running low on bread or milk, and the next part is hooking up with Harris Farm and Woolworths and the rest of it to actually make purchases as well. But it was easy to set up and it's really impressive.
My hack is very similar but different. And I thought, how can you top Laurence Olivier, who you also have on the app? What I did is I have a semi-humorous Substack, bite-size once a week. Having Laurence Olivier read my own Substack back out to me, I'm like, wow, this is world-class writing. It's incredible.
Exactly.
Super cool.
The voice matters, right? The voice that delivers something actually matters.
It genuinely does matter. And there is something powerful about the connection you have with these voices, right? Brings me back to Wuthering Heights and you know, being able to hear his voice. Yeah, the old school one.
Okay,
the old school one
yes,
he's in. Yeah. Amazing. Fantastic hack. The reason I'm so thrilled to speak to you is ElevenLabs is launching here in Australia. This is huge news. So excited. First of all, what is your role at ElevenLabs, and set the scene about the team here and plans for the team?
Sure, would love to. So we have a bit of a philosophy of no job titles at ElevenLabs. We like to hire people that are committed to the cause, and no task or job is beneath them, and hiring for the right culture. So we are light on job titles, but my job title essentially is General Manager of Region, so ANZ. We are aggressively expanding into a lot of international regions, and ANZ is one of them. So really excited and proud to be leading the team here. We have 4 people in region at the moment, all hired this year.
Wow.
And we've got plans to 3 to 4x the size of the team very quickly. We are launching our presence in region, but we already have a really strong customer base here, and that was one of the reasons why ANZ was one of the markets we're expanding in. So we've got a great list of customers here already today, and there's some really strong signals from the market that organizations are shifting from, proof of concept that goes to die maybe in the corner of one pocket of the organization to just a real understanding that voice AI to communicate with customers and also internally is going to be critical to the organization moving forward. So there's some really strong signals in market, and it's really important to have a local team with local market knowledge and can really embed deeply with the customer to understand their problems, because this is a really challenging, complex space. Voice AI is very complex to get right at scale and to make it human-like. So it really requires a local team with local resources to work with our customers closely. So I'm really excited.
It's so exciting because voice AI, I do think of ElevenLabs and have for a few years. A lot of our listeners are in the tech space and the startup space and familiar. You mentioned that we're ready here, and voice AI is a unique space in AI. What were the signals that we were ready? And are you allowed to share any of the customers, wink or a nudge for the listeners globally?
Sure. Yeah, well, we're having our launch event this week, and we've got some amazing customers speaking on stage that are already attributed to ElevenLabs, from Xero to Heidi Health to Employment Hero. So some really interesting brands and customers here locally, with lots of different use cases, from deploying a voice AI agent to make outbound calls to customers that otherwise would never really get any love. That's on one side. On the other side, we have a completely different use case, which is Andromeda, who has, I'm sure you're familiar with Andromeda, but for those who are not, they have an amazing use case for a voice AI and human-like voices within their robot that is Abby. And Abby is, great tech for good story, which is visiting patients in aged care facilities, or residents, I should say, in aged care facilities that otherwise maybe would not have, not getting regular visits, and to have a human-like experience to engage and have, better outcomes for residents is another great use case. So there's lots of different customers that we work with here locally, and a variety of different use cases. But I think signals-wise, back to your question, I mentioned before about little proof of concepts that sort of go to die in a corner of the business. My observations in the market, I think there's probably 2 things. One is there has been an incredible amount of inbound inquiry, which is a clear signal when ElevenLabs has a really strong PLG motion globally, with fantastic success. And we have evolved our platform into more of an end-to-end agentic AI platform with voice at the center, because it's the hardest one to really get right. But it's not just voice, of course, for us. You need to be multimodal. But the signals that we're getting in the market are really not only complementing the human experience to create better touch points and customer experiences for end customers. So it's not only that, but it's the ability to branch out into different parts of the business to provide different experiences to customers that just otherwise wouldn't make financial sense to have humans doing so. So that's where we're seeing some really interesting signals in the market.
Incredible. I hadn't even thought about Abby the robot, who I am personally familiar with the business and the robot in these aged care facilities. And I never thought, oh my gosh, voice is the missing piece there. That's so incredible. So very excited to hear more about that, see more about that.
Founders scale faster on Deal. Set up payroll for any country in minutes, hire anyone anywhere, and get visas handled fast so you stay focused on scaling. Deal takes care of onboarding, HR, IT, EOR, benefits, and compliance so your team can grow without borders. It's why more than 40,000 fast-growing companies trust Deal to move fast. Visit deal.com/day1. That's DEEL.com/day1.
Can we zoom out a moment? You started your career, like I'm listening to, you're very tech and business literate, but you started your career as a journalist. Is that right?
I did many years ago now. Yes, didn't last too long. It was only a couple of years.
I feel like journalism is still really important, but how do you see AI impacting journalism and that kind of integrity of writing?
Yes, good question. Look, I think over time, and I saw it even when, I'm going back to early 2000s, and even then you could see perhaps the industry was going to be challenged by technology, and there were less and less roles and entry-level roles. There's good and bad that comes with technology improvements. I would say journalism has been, it's been a bit choppy, right? There's been a lot of great things to come from technology, but I think in the journalism space, it really has eroded journalism, in my opinion. And, to find quality journalism these days, quality investigative journalism in particular, that is non-bias, and that is a trusted source is really hard. Now, a lot of people consume their news on social media, and that creates inherent problems, I think, in society. But that's probably a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that would be an interesting podcast. I do know I can very quickly tell when people are getting their journalism from like fintech Twitter and things like that. Mm-hmm. But where do you get your knowledge now? AI is moving so quickly.
Yeah. So I'd probably say the three main sources for me. Number one is AFR, and so I skew towards the Fairfax, the old Fairfax type of publications. So AFR and SMH, and SMH even today does some really good investigative journalism work. So that's for my personal and business reading. So personal SMH, AFR for business, and then the ABC as well. So which I find is a good balance. So that's where I go to consume my media, but I'm very much I'm a habitual once a day type of news consumer. So I kind of have the opposite of FOMO.
Yeah.
I don't require like a stream of information coming at me left, right, and center from all different places. I just have the habit of, I know where I want to source my information. I go there once a day, and then I move on with my day, and the next day I'll come back.
That's my New Year's resolution for next year. Currently, I am the stream of information at all times person.
That's okay.
You don't have an Instagram, right? So, please stay away, because that's the problem, right? It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I struggle with LinkedIn as it is, let alone anything else. But yeah,
exactly right. Very fascinating to get that perspective from an ex-journalist, by the way. Look, before interviewing you, I did look at your LinkedIn. I was really aware of Hyper Anna, where you used to work, because I worked at Accenture, and I think we used the tools, and it was very exciting, very successful. And then it was acquired by Alteryx, which is a product I used in a different consulting firm since then. So much has changed since this tech was launched and blew our minds with the evolution of AI. What made those products special and before a time that AI existed that might have not used them?
Yeah, in many ways there's been so much that has changed. So I think that's going back 7 to 8 years now, when I was at Hyper Anna, before it was acquired by Alteryx. And so much has changed since then. But testament to the co-founders and Natalie, the co-founder and CEO, was amazing to work with, and a really smart team there. They had a really clear vision that was ahead of the market. So what you're seeing today, a lot with vendors today, is what Hyperana was working on and selling 7 years ago. There was a bit of ETL required to transition between the data set that a customer typically has and to extract like natural language insights for every business user, which was the premise of Hyperana. But super smart team, ahead of its time. So much has changed, yet I still think that there is a bit of a gap with the everyday business user still having to rely on dashboards and reports and without having easy access to insights. So I still think there's a big opportunity to continue developing that space.
Your colleague Carlos went semi-viral on a podcast that I adore and love called 20VC, talking about the high-performance culture at ElevenLabs. But you're really passionate about, yes, high performance, but I read that you're also interested in sustainability and enjoyment. Can you tell me how both? How can you be high-performing and also sustainable? And also maybe even enjoy your life? Like, how?
Sure, yes. I was going to ask you what sort of sustainability were we talking about here on the other, but I know what you're saying. Yes, absolutely. So, yes, Carlos has had quite some viral moments in some of his podcasts. Like, I think and you may have heard or people may have seen the 20x their quota, like 20x salary for quota.
Firstly, explain that too, just in case people don't understand.
Sure.
If they've got a 100K salary.
Yeah, so I'll clarify this. So it's a base salary, 20x of your base salary. So typically an enterprise AE might have a 50-50 split of base and variable for their salary package. So if someone has 100K as their base, then their quota would be 20x that, so $2 million.
Yeah.
So that's what we're referring to here. But I think there's a couple of things if we strip this back that we look for. And firstly, in many ways, ElevenLabs the growth story has rewritten, along with other companies as well, not just ElevenLabs, but rewritten the way that a fast-growing tech company grows. To get to, I think at the point, roughly 400 million ARR with roughly 400 employees, those multiples are wild compared to your more legacy SaaS organizations. So if you are joining ElevenLabs or really any other fast-growing tech company today, if you're not having a view of at least 3, 4, 5xing yourself, then you probably shouldn't be there. And for us, we like to use 11, so I'm going to say 11xing yourself. But that's really one of the traits that we look for. We're looking for the best of the best, but we also look for people who are at a time in their career that see the opportunity ahead of us in the next few years and genuinely see the opportunity for this to be a career-defining role for them, and to, you hear the saying of do the best work of their lives or the best work of your life, which is, yes, that's a little bit cheesy, but that's genuinely what you want to have. But I'd also add to that is that you want people that see the moment and the opportunity ahead of them and genuinely are in a position life-wise where they say, right, this is my career-defining role. This is going to be the most successful role that I ever have, and I'm going to put absolutely everything into it. That's the type of person that we want. So it talks to that, I think, a lot. It also talks to the success that we've had and the signals from the market. I'd also say that we are moving up segment a little bit to the enterprise segment, where we've had a really strong PLG motion that has already gone up segment, but we're just doubling down on up segment as well. So I'll give you my take on the sustainability element of this, because coming from different types of organizations and where you'll see a lot of, I would say, a legacy traditional approach to sales pressure of performance, which is pressure from the top down. Every quarter is the most important quarter in the company's history. Every month is the most important month. That's great. Every week is the most important week. Every deal is the most important deal. That only gets you so far. And I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't have pressure in an organization, but that has diminishing returns over time. And it's hard to continue to replicate, right? It's not sustainable. If you think about a personal trainer and someone who performs really well when on the Monday mornings when they have their one-to-one with the personal trainer, they always turn up, right? Because their personal trainer is going to be there. And the personal trainer, to get the best out of that person, is yelling or shouting at them, right? And of course, they have an amazing training session. We want the people that are intrinsically motivated, that train like that, no matter what day of the week it is, and whether or not the personal trainer is there. So in practice, like, how does that actually work? The first thing I look for personally is that the example I mentioned before. So are they at a point in time where they recognize, hey, I'm going to go all in on this because there's an opportunity here for this to be the most successful role of my career? That is number one that I'll look for. Number two is a personal connection to the mission. I think that's really important as well. If you don't fundamentally believe in the impact that your technology can have on customers and the impact it can have on their customers, if you're not all in on that, then you're in the wrong space. And when you get people that are like that, it oozes out of them, right? So when they're speaking to customers, it's very obvious. So that passion is very important. And that's infectious as well, right? That's infectious throughout the team, but also every time you meet with a customer or a partner or a potential customer. So I look for finding the right people at the right time. I will also look for a personal connection to the mission. And then I will allow a lot of self-selection from let's just take an AE as an example. Typically it is, okay, AE comes on board, they start, you give them their quota. In this case, it might be 20x, right?
Yep.
Which can be scary, which can be daunting. And you look at it and think, oh, how am I going to get there? But before even doing that, I'd be sitting down with said AE who has kind of just started, gone through onboarding, and we give them a challenge to think about, if I could 11x myself, what is the possibility that I could get to? So what is the art of the possible here? So go away, Georgie, as an AE, and think about, if everything went right and I 11x'd myself and I had support from all pockets of the organization and everything went really well, where could you get to? And I would like you to come back and self-select a bit of a crazy, scary stretch goal. Is something that you look at and say, oh, that's really challenging, but it's achievable. But you select that, right? And then we work together to co-design a path there. That path needs to be and have clarity on how to get to that path. And once you do that, you then have someone who is all in on doing the best work of their life. They are connected personally to the mission, which oozes out of them. You also get a self-deterministic outcome for a stretch goal. And then you get, as a result of that, you have ownership and accountability, and you have intrinsic motivation for the individual long-term to get to that goal, right? And it's not just necessarily smooth sailing from there. I wish it was as simple as that, of course. But your role, or my role, starts to become a little bit different. Rather than every week bringing up a dashboard and saying, hey, you haven't got this, and you're pressuring, those pressure tactics, it is a little bit different. There's intrinsic motivation, and lots of studies will show you that intrinsic motivation always beats the external motivation.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Like if you have a personal trainer that yells at you to get into shape, does it feel the same as you being like, I have a goal and this is the goal I want and I'm going to fight for it? It also reminds me of, think of those amazing portfolio careers, right? They were at PayPal at this time. They were at Stripe in the early days. If that doesn't set you on fire of oh man, I wish I was there at that time, and this is the chance to be there at that time, and you're kind of not excited by that possibility. Exactly.
And you can see that straight away, right?
Yeah.
And then the goal from there is, your role, or my role from there is, there's going to be ups and downs, right, along the way. But there's coaching, and I'm essentially acting as a consultant
Yeah.
and trusted advisor of the team members that not only that, but then I'm just an extension of their team, right? And the best AEs they're a quarterback, but they've got an army of people working with them. You cannot be a solo operator AE in this day and age because you can't 11x yourself. So I become an extension of the selling team, as does the founder of the organization, as do the cross-functional resources that you have globally. And I'm consulting and coaching along the way, and I'm there through the ups and the downs. And the last thing I'll say is like a really strong focus on a weekly cadence, which is very much progress driven. So whatever project you have, big project you have, or it might be a big deal that you're working on, whatever your strategic like big rocks or big bets are, it is a really strong focus on weekly progress, so that you're like inching up the mountain in the scenario where you've got a big enterprise deal, for example.
Well, those number of roles that you have available, I hope they listen to that and they nail the interview, because there's no excuse now. Let's talk about how ElevenLabs first started. I found this really lovely. Two Polish guys frustrated by badly dubbed American films. First of all, true or not true?
True.
Amazing. I also do my best work when I'm super frustrated and angry. How successful are you guys now? Humble beginnings.
Well, firstly, on the dubbing, that dubbing story is really interesting. Personally, I can't even watch a movie that's not only that it's not dubbed, even if it's just an English movie, if the timing is slightly off, that grinds my gears, right? I cannot even watch it. So I feel for the co-founders.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine watching a badly dubbed movie? Okay. And not only that, because dubbing is actually quite expensive to produce with voice with real humans. Apparently, what they used to do is just have one person dubbing an entire film.
Oh my God.
So can you imagine not only watching a dubbed film, but watching a dubbed film where you only have one person doing the dubbing. So for every voice, just one person.
No. Can't imagine.
But yeah, it's a really interesting founding story, and the guys are geniuses. But back to your point about how successful are we? We have recently announced we've passed 500 million in ARR within 4 years, which is crazy growth, especially as I mentioned before, for the number of employees that we have. That's crazy growth. And I think what's even crazier is it feels like, and I'm only 4 weeks in, right? But it feels like we're only just getting started. And the progression from being what we're known as the world's leading voice AI platform to the end-to-end voice AI agents platform, that's our fastest growing part of the organization, and that's where we're spending most of our time with customers today. And the addressable market there is enormous. So yes, we've been successful to date globally. I'm excited to bring that to Australia and New Zealand to expand on what we have today. But in many ways, it feels like, well, I've only just got started, but it feels like we as a company are just getting started.
I keep seeing hockey stick curves, and they're never actually hockey stick curves. And this is like, you are on that tip part of the hockey stick.
Yes.
How do you think Aussies will respond to voice AI? Like, we've touched upon it a little bit. It kind of reminds me of robotics almost. It's like when you talk about the incredible use cases, amazing, but what's the initial reaction to voice AI, and how do you go to market with it?
Well, in many ways, a lot of people I think have been burnt a little bit by voice AI.
Voice AI.
Yeah, well, exactly, right? And if you go back to like 80s and 90s, and even Alexa and the like, there's been implementations of voice AI. Most of them sound really robotic. And even if it doesn't quite sound robotic, the ability to interact with it as you would a human has been non-existent for a long time. So there is certainly an education piece that, unless you're in the space, right? If you're in the space, it's a little bit different. But what's interesting is execs and business leaders that's the opinion that they have for the most part, right? They're thinking about the Stephen Hawking voice or the bad Alexa experience, and everyone's had that experience probably with voice AI to some degree, where it's that robotic experience. So there's a big education piece, I think, in the market, and there's really a penny drop moment where when you demo an experience which is genuinely human-like, it is expressive, and you can feel like you can have an interaction that is, it's not the same as a human, right? Because how we're sitting with each other right now is always going to be different, right? If you think about if we were doing this virtually over Zoom or Google Meet, for example, even that would be a different experience.
For sure.
Right? So there is that element of humanness that will never be completely replaced. But we have gotten so far with progression of the technology where you can genuinely have an extremely expressive human-like experience and conversation with AI. So I think a big part of it is the education. The technology is there today. The challenge is once you get down into the detail and the edge cases and the nuance, to do something at scale and to have it with low latency, that's where it becomes really challenging. Like, it's a really challenging problem to solve. And that's why we have launched in region, because customers are either solving this right now or attempting to solve it. And it's a matter of, where do we get to that is good enough to go into production where we're not losing customers and we're actually creating a better experience. So you're seeing that tipping point now, and we're excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's classic startup, right? Like, we have to get to market, but if you wait too long, you've missed it. So speaking of the challenges, it reminds me, we want it to be perfect. We want it to be exactly like a human conversation. But then you get accused of, well, now it's uncanny valley. Do you want to talk a little bit about voice cloning and where the ethics come into having Michael Caine's voice or Laurence Olivier's voice? How do you guys address that and have voices on the platform? Yeah,
great question. So safety and ethics is really, really important to us. And just like with any technology that progresses to a point, especially when you're thinking about AI, you need to be really careful about how it's deployed. We have voice verification on the platform. There is lots of safeguards that we have in place. So it's incumbent upon the vendor, but also the company, to make sure that they're getting it right as well, the customer who is actually deploying. So safety and verification and following those protocols and guardrails is really important.
How did you get certain voices? Like, how?
Yeah, so for celebrities, for example, we have partnerships with celebrities.
Wow.
That recognize the tech for good element of this. We also have an amazingly successful voice marketplace where voice actors, or anyone really, can do a professional voice clone, upload it to the platform, and as a customer, you get this amazing library of all different voices to choose from. So to help me prepare for this conversation, I actually built a very quick, easy voice AI agent just to do a bit of prep, right? And so I just chose a voice. Now I can't go and clone your voice without your consent. So consent is really important here. So I wouldn't go and do that because I would need your consent, or you would actually need to go and upload your voice for me to use on the platform. But the reason why that's interesting is, voice actors who are probably, not as in demand for work as maybe they used to be. This gives them an opportunity to earn money on the platform for every time their voice is used, which might be for a product demonstration video, or it might be for an audiobook using their voice. And there's some amazing stories about these voice actors who are in the top 10 voices for ElevenLabs and come up to the ElevenLabs team at one of the events and saying, hey, like, my life has changed because I'm number 3 on the platform and now I'm making X amount of money through this. So on the tech for good side, it's some really great stories there.
That's brilliant. I'm thinking of some audiobooks that I've listened to and I just didn't like the voice. I'd love to just swap it out. Yeah, that'd be great.
Michael Caine.
Yeah, Michael Caine.
Yep.
Okay, and how much how much do you need? I've got, if I gave permission, I've got a library of podcast videos. I've got hundreds of hours. How much do you need to fully encompass someone's voice on the platform?
Yeah, so there's a minimum of 30 seconds just to get something that sounds similar to your voice. And it's actually pretty impressive what you can get with just 30 seconds. So there are unfortunately lots of circumstances where, people lose their voice or their ability to speak in life, and occasions where if you didn't really see that coming or you didn't plan ahead, you're not going to do a professional voice clone, of course. But you can actually, there's been many stories of people going back through old voicemails, or maybe it's a wedding speech that was caught on camera, and to be able to use that, even if it's just 30 seconds, to create a similar voice that is a voice clone. Now that's the bare minimum, right? We would recommend 60 seconds, one to 2 minutes.
That's so not much,
just
Damian.
just to get something that is similar, right? It's similar, so you can hear it being played back, and you can hear, okay, that's my voice. But to do a professional voice clone, we recommend 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that is recorded audio of high quality audio, right? So if we're in a room like this, we could spend 1 to 2 hours, and that's where you get the genuine voice clone. So yeah, it's almost like, think about it as I don't know, an artist that is painting a portrait of you. If they spend 30 seconds looking at you and then you run away, and I'm doing the painting. I'm a terrible artist, by the way, so I would not. It would look nothing like you.
Regardless.
But that would look like, it would resemble you to a degree, right? If they spent 2 minutes with you, they would have a better mental picture, and then to do a proper portrait. But if they spent a few hours with you and actually painted the portrait in its entirety whilst you sat there for 2 hours, that's going to be far more similar. So that, like, think about it in that analogy, you get 30 seconds as a minimum, but to get a proper professional voice clone, 1 to 2 hours of high quality audio.
That makes sense. Like, even the way people laugh is very unique and things like that.
Yes.
Incredible. That's still so much less than I would have assumed. Okay. Listeners might be wondering, what about scammers? I have given permission. I have put my voice on the platform, and now a scammer has used that and is calling up my sister, help bail me out, I need money or something. Of course, there's going to be headlines about this. Well, what are you thinking around voice AI in general and being used in nefarious ways?
So again, the position on ElevenLabs, from ElevenLabs' perspective, is very strong on this, that we want to do whatever is possible within reason, to not only prevent things like this happening, but also for detection and then shutting something down if something does happen, right? So and we have a safety team that handles that. So we're cognizant of the importance of that. With any technology, it has the ability for misuse. That's the reality of it. And as I mentioned before, it's incumbent upon the vendor, but also the company and the customer, whoever's involved, and all of society really, for us to be safeguarding ourselves around that. I'd say, to your example, right? Firstly, an education piece, which will which will happen gradually over time. We all know not to respond to the Nigerian prince email, right?
Yes. Caught out a few times. No, I'm kidding. No, I wasn't. Yes.
We all know not to respond to that. So I think there's some similar education in the market that, once voice AI becomes a little bit more ubiquitous, that there is some education in the market just to understand that how I do need to be a little bit careful, just like we do for any AI with deepfakes. So I think that's a component of it. But there's also some common sense, right? If your sister in this scenario was calling you, you would like to think that you would pick up, right? So on one hand, it's going to be human-like, and it's going to be expressive, and we've come a long way. On the other hand, in that scenario, you should be able to pick up, or hang on, something is not quite right here. And even think about, I actually find this quite annoying, but when I think almost every banking app right now is, even though you've Face ID'd, right, and you go to transfer money to someone or pay for something, and they treat you like you're you're an
a
idiot,
scammer.
right? Or you're an idiot. It's like, okay,
yeah.
You have to like select the use case.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Is this really you? Is this, so
Yeah.
there's so many like safeguards in
Yeah.
place. Unfortunately, because of scammers and fraud, we have to go down that path. So hopefully that will just continue. Like the market will be self-educated to a degree, but it is a concern, right? And I'll talk to another use case from a customer that is quite pertinent to this topic. We have a customer using our voices to provide a service to some of the largest banks and telcos in Australia, which is almost like a reverse DDoS type of use case. So what I mean by that is, in practice, if let's say you call someone, let's say you're a scammer, okay? Let's play this out, right?
Crazier things have happened.
Yep.
Yes, I'm a scammer.
Next roll, yep. So you call up and you call up a bank, one of the big four banks, and you try and obtain some information. Let's say you've got an email address from someone, or you found some information online, you're trying to impersonate me. So you try and access my account. The bank, of course, has training and procedures in place to recognize, hey, this Georgie character, a little bit shady, right? This phone call is a little bit dodgy. And I think this is fraudulent, right? This is a scam. So you would then get handed off to this voice AI platform, which is using ElevenLabs technology as part of the technology, which then keeps you on the line for as long as possible, plays along, right? And gathers as much intel as possible on you and what you're trying to do to help build safeguards in place so it prevents fraud. So really interesting
That's fascinating.
use case there.
It reminds me of, the James Bond movies. It's like they're trying to figure out where your location is, so they keep you on the line as long as possible so that they can figure out where to torpedo.
Yep.
That is fascinating. Actually, you might find this semi-interesting. We had a podcast guest who had a very successful exit, 180 million or something, and he said on the show he's written down a specific password. No one's allowed to talk, but he's given it to his boomer parents and said, if you get a call from me, because he's got a podcast himself, and it sounds like me and it sounds like I need something or want something or whatever, this is the special safe word.
Wow,
and
okay.
you can't say it out loud because who knows, he's a little paranoid.
Yep.
But isn't it fascinating that people are starting to re-educate their friends and loved ones and family members?
Well, now that you've said it on the podcast, hopefully they don't track down that house.
Thankfully, he didn't write it down. But yes, imagine. Yeah, I'm like, which drawer is it? And yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
I love that it's just written down on a piece of paper, like going through with all the technology we have, and just like, yeah.
This is the thing though, because with passwords in folders and things can get hacked.
Yeah, well, all the Bitcoin stories about
exactly.
how much wealth
Safe
has been.
keys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fascinating. And last question on this. When it comes to music, everyone, we were even talking just before recording, that's what people remember when it comes to AI and sound is, artists that have since passed away love to hear an Elvis song or there's you mentioned, is it creating from scratch or is it reimagining existing work? Can you talk to me a little bit about this space, and are you guys in the music space as well?
We are through our 11 Creative platform. Thanks for the plug. So we have essentially three parts of the platform: 11 API, 11 Creative, and 11 agents. But the 11 Creative platform is designed to do just that. You can create. There's lots of use cases where you're not necessarily going to go and procure a new song, or you're going to have humans create a new song. It could just be for a product video, and you can create your own music. Like, create me this, and it's going to create you the music, right? So that's part of the platform. Back to your question, Elvis, right? Elvis. Yeah. Thankfully, Elvis has lots of songs. If you want to listen to some Elvis songs,
yes.
But I think there is two parts to this. One is the technology that I find incredible. That's that I think we're seeing a lot of advantage from right now is the ability to take something that has previously been recorded, and it could be an artist like a Tupac or a Biggie Smalls or a Kurt Cobain. I'm thinking about all the artists who have been really successful and popular but have died early, right? Yeah. And to grab previous recordings, maybe some unreleased edits, and to create whole new tracks and songs, of course with consent of whoever is managing their estate,
Yeah.
right, is really valuable to and amazing for fans and music lovers alike, provided it's a nice song, right? So I think that's really interesting technology that I think has incredible value.
Who would you want? Who'd be on your bring 'em back list?
I would say Kurt. I find Kurt really, really interesting and intriguing. I'm a sucker for haunting, painful voices in music.
Seattle vibes.
So I love I love the Unplugged in New York album, for example. But anyway, I think he died at 27. That's like sort of that golden age where you need to make sure you get past.
Yes.
So I would say Kurt is my answer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about enterprise companies, because normally when I think of AI and speed and disruption even, think of enterprises on the opposite end, perhaps, less open to change and disruption. What are you finding? And before that, you've worked at Salesforce, you've worked at News Corp. Do you think these companies can adapt to this time in AI, and what would be the signs that you think that they're on the right path?
Bit to unpack here, so you might have to remind me of the second part of that question, because I'll dig into the first one.
Yeah, there's a lot.
First. Look, I think Australia is a really interesting market where it's obviously a relatively small market compared to other regions in the world, where for the most part there's 2 or 3, sometimes 4 big players in every industry vertical. And sure, there's some challenger or digital brands underneath that. But with that, it means that there's a lot of safety and security of being in that top 3, top 4. And lots of those organizations, if you go back through the last 10, 20, 30 years, going back in the day, they're buying lots of IBM, they're buying lots of Microsoft. There's lots of safe bets those organizations can make and have made in the past. On one hand, I'll say that. I think what you're seeing with Gen AI is I think it is shifting. The market is shifting in my observation. I referenced before the example where little proof of concepts sort of go to die in one pocket of the organization, because with great intent, it gets a little bit too hard basket. My observation is, and speaking to customers, is that is changing over time. There are lots of really progressive CTOs, CIOs out there in the market. I think part of the challenge is that the reluctance to really go for an edge use case or to do something different or unique means that if they get something wrong, the impact for their personal brand, but also for the organization, can be quite damaging. And we've seen examples with AI chatbots and voice AI even recently where that has been the case. So I think that's a challenge, but I think we're seeing a bit of a shift in the market where organizations have gone from, hey, let's try this over here. If it doesn't work, that's all right, let's continue, to actually, we really recognize that let's take a contact center, for example. I think there's a recognition in the market that the customer experience, there's 2 parts to this. The customer experience of calling or getting a call from a call center, I think we could all agree is subpar for the vast majority, right? That's
not a fan.
That's maybe putting it nicely.
Yep.
Okay. And with that, not only is it subpar, but there's a huge exorbitant cost to having a contact center, especially if it is onshore. And sometimes that's just an outsourced function that is offshore. But even so, it could be $3 to $4 Aussie for a phone call, right, to handle one of these customer inquiries. And most of the time, the customer inquiry is probably not even complex enough to warrant having that conversation. Now, this is an area where there is clearly, everyone would agree, lowest hanging fruit for voice AI. My observation is that voice AI will complement humans in a call center. There is absolutely a requirement and a need for humans to persist in the customer experience. But there is underneath that, that's the high level, really important VIP touch point or complex case, which is human. But really, when you start peeling back underneath that, you start to get to the area where you can actually scale of significance and provide a better customer experience, which should be the end goal, at a fraction of the cost. Having said that, there is a lot of, I think there's a sentiment in the media and the public that any organisation who looks to repurpose staff by implementing AI, that's a really dangerous path, I think, publicly for organisations to go through. So what I'm observing at the moment is an interesting time in the market where the technology is now there to not handle every use case, but to complement humans. Yet I think there is a really high bar that companies in Australia and New Zealand have when it comes to getting it right, because the ramifications of getting it wrong are probably disproportionate to the real life, to, in my opinion, what the ramifications should be.
100% agree. It's like this intolerance for failure, and we see in the US failure is just part of it. We see it in the startup ecosystem. Like, yeah, I'll build something else. It doesn't mean that I've made a choice that makes me a bad entrepreneur. It's just you try things, they work, they don't work. I love that answer. I also love the way you approached it. This is an old-fashioned, traditional enterprise type offering, but it's bad. It's bad right now. So the risk tolerance should be higher of trying something in AI. But yes, there are some companies that risk tolerance is low. And hopefully, I think that is changing, and hopefully that continues to change here in market.
Yeah, and I think we will get there. We will get there. I think that the first thought goes to what exists today with a human, but there is so much else to consider when you think about, okay, well, where the use cases where it doesn't make sense just commercially for you to invest in humans to be doing something. Right? Yeah. Either speaking to someone over the phone or engaging with the customer. There's so much sort of beneath the iceberg. If you think about call center is the tip of the iceberg, underneath the water, there's this huge remainder of the iceberg where voice AI can add so much to a customer experience. And I think we're going to get there pretty quickly where everyone's playing with AI personally, yet I think even just going beyond basic Q&A still has a way to go. But regardless, basic Q&A, AI for basic Q&A and AI for agents, if you're a little bit progressive, that is going to continue to proliferate around individuals who are using it for personal life. I mentioned Michael Caine, our butler that's on the fridge. Very soon, it will be normal to have your own AI assistant that you can speak to, that not only gives you advice and proactively recommends things, but can go and actually take action with your permission, with the right guardrails, of course. And that action will often be speaking or connecting with a brand or an organization to potentially go and buy something or make a change to a flight. And on the other end of that is sometimes a human, but also more and more so will be an AI agent as well. And like, I'm not talking about anything too futuristic. That will happen. It's a matter of how quickly that happens. But that's the experience that companies need to prepare for.
On that, there are so many head of AIs now at enterprise. Like, this didn't exist, this role, a few years ago. You are the spokesperson for everything AI related. What would you say to those heads of AI at whatever enterprise company, and how would you recommend they consider voice AI for their business? I know I'm being very broad here.
Well, I would expect this head of AI to be far more technically versed on AI and know exactly how to deploy than me. But I will always come at it from a business lens and a business point of view. I think the critical thing about a head of AI, or however AI is deployed within an organization, is that it's a fundamental part of the organization. And I've just remembered the second part of that question you asked me before, right? So we'll come back to it. It needs to be a fundamental part of the organization, and your organization needs to be structured in a way where it's not just off to the side. Right? I think that's really, really critical. And as an organization, which is partly answering your previous question, like a Salesforce, which I think has done a good job at doing this, which is really identifying early on that if you don't fundamentally try to rebuild your organization from the ground up to be genuinely AI first and an agentic company, then you're going to be left behind. So I would look at it to the head of AI very much from a business lens, because the AI part of it is a bit of a misnomer. I'd be thinking about, as the organization at C-level, as the board, what are the business drivers that are going to take us from here to here in the next 5 years? And then we look at, okay, well, how are we going to achieve that? No, you just simply no longer can you throw an army of people at the problem. That has always been really the way to, you either acquire a new business to get into a new line, or you hire more AEs to bring to market, or you hire a different, that's typically been the approach. We can no longer do that, right? So it is, how can we fundamentally transform the business, number one, so we're AI first, but secondly, what do we want to achieve as an organization, and how can AI power that? How can AI drive that? I would strongly urge that it is led by the business. You have business, technology, and maybe AI, head of AI, maybe in between there. If it's led by technology, and the technology organization is a fantastic organization that adds a lot of value to the company, but if it's not led by business, then you could get safety and security and guardrails, which are very important, don't get me wrong, but might override a business impact and a business outcome that means you get left behind.
And even that change management piece, like if they're in a silo, or if they're not given autonomy to make change, I do feel for, nice role title, but you don't have the full support of the business sometimes, which is hard.
Yeah, and it's horses for courses, right? Like there's some organizations where they do have, like, that head of AI type of role plays a really integral part to the organization that is well connected at every part of the organization, is genuinely driving change and transformation with AI, right? There's others that it won't be the case. So it's just about getting that balance right.
Fully agree. Love how much time you've spent as an executive to see that. Mate, are you ready for the spicy part of the interview, the rapid fire?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yes.
feel like you're warmed up now.
Yep, ready to go.
Damian, podcasting is my one job. You guys have very realistic conversations on the platform that I can't tell the difference between real humans and those. Should I be looking for a new job?
No, I'm a big believer in the craft.
Okay.
The craft matters, and this is where the craft applies. So no, not for now. Ask me in 10 years again.
I'll ask you in 2 years if you're still hiring. Is there anything about the Aussie market that we undersell ourselves on? I was really mean before about like this inability to take on failure and be okay with that. But what are we better than we think we are at?
I think in general, we have a lot of amazing technology here and startups. I think we need to be louder and prouder. I think human nature in Australia is to be like humble and keep things under wraps. I think sometimes we need to do the opposite.
Agree. Is tall poppy syndrome maybe holding us back, do you think, especially in technology? In
society in general, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a scourge on society, to be honest.
Agree.
Yep,
I'm over it.
Yep.
So over it. What would you say to people that, you've had your career in Sydney and an incredible career at the top companies. What if I said, oh, you should have spent that time in the US? Do you think that's true? Or the UK or somewhere else?
I would firstly encourage anyone to travel overseas and experience that. As far as like starting a company, and I mean, you don't have to physically be there from the start. I think at a certain point of time, there needs to be an expansion into those markets. But as an individual, you don't necessarily need to make that hop. I think you can make it work today without having to physically relocate.
It's surprising how controversial that opinion is, but I have been hearing it more and more from successful people in business and startups and the like, that I'm well traveled. I don't know why I need to physically relocate. Would you agree with that?
Again, it depends on it depends on the circumstance, really. But I think you can. It's been proven you can have a successful Australian business and Australian tech company starting here and staying here. Look at Cliff and Mel.
Yeah.
Look at Atlassian. Clearly, there needs to be a stake in the ground in the US at some point. and in Europe. But how that happens and how you, I guess, massage that, it can be different ways of doing that, right? You don't have to move there.
Love. Hire slow, fire quick is a common rhetoric. Kind of wish I took that on 2 months ago myself. What are you looking for in this hiring phase, and how you don't have much time? How are you going to get the best talent?
So I answered a little bit of this before, of like what we look for. I don't think there's a hard and fast of this is exactly, like we've got a playbook of how we hire, of course, but we're looking for all the things I mentioned before, and you can make pretty fast decisions. There's a technical element that you need to pass as well for most roles. But yeah, I think almost within the first meeting, I would say that 90% of the time I can pick whether someone is going to get to the last stage.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Is there any personal traits or anything they say that you're like, either, whew, no way, or I think they're onto something? Or is it a gut check?
I shouldn't say it's a gut check,
but
right? But there's a big, let's be honest, the reality is when you meet with people and you have a conversation with them and you look at their experience and they're ticking these boxes that I mentioned before, I would say within the first 15 minutes of meeting with them, you can tell whether this person is going to make it to the final stage. Not necessarily whether you will hire them, but whether they can make it to the final stage.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Last question. Which popular enterprise company may fail if they don't adopt AI, voice or otherwise?
Oh, geez. Well, that's pretty tough to answer, to throw a company under the bus, knowing as well whether we're launching into a region, we probably want to speak to them. But I'm going to cheat a little bit and say, give you an industry, the BPO industry. So if you are not...
What's BPO?
Business process outsourcing.
I don't know what that is.
That's okay. That could be the call center example that I mentioned before is just one example of that. It's the concept of outsourcing business processes to an external organization. So this is an obvious one. So I'm cheating a little bit by saying this, but if you're not fundamentally transforming your business to be AI first and voice AI first, frankly, then you won't survive. I think the other one that falls into that bucket as well, but that's adjacent, is even the consulting and VC world. Like that is turning upside down as well, because the typical way of doing business is being challenged.
I agree, and anyone that's seen Devil Wears Prada 2 will be seeing this play out in real life, which is fascinating.
I'm not one of those people.
It's your homework.
Yes, okay, I'll put that on tonight.
Damian, this has been such a pleasure, such an honest chat. Thank you for answering even the spicier questions. I really appreciate it. How do people follow you? How do people find the roles? Any shout outs for the end of the interview? Yeah, well, I'm not a massive social media person, so there's only one place to follow me, which is LinkedIn. But yeah, as I mentioned before, we are hiring at the moment. We are looking for the best of the best talent. So we're hiring at the moment. We've got lots of roles open. You can follow me on LinkedIn, and anyone who has an interest in voice AI, be it at a large enterprise or otherwise, would love to have a conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you, Georgie. Thank you so much for listening to In the Blink of AI. If you want to go deeper on anything we've spoken about today, I write a weekly Substack called Attention is All I Need. Yes, it's hilarious. It's a pun. And essentially, I go into AI rants, tech news, events I'm going to, and more. It's bite-sized, and I hear it's awesome. The link is in the show notes below.